Welcome to the What If It's Not Depression podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Achina Stein. And today I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Anna Maria Temple about kids. And she is a board certified pediatrician, a holistic pediatrician. She's been treating kids for 18 plus years, practicing in a traditional model for 10 years, until transitioning to a holistic approach where she has changed thousands of children's lives. She is known for her extensive experience in the treatment of eczema specifically and other childhood autoimmune diseases. Dr. Anna Maria Temple is a best-selling author of Healthy Kids in an Unhealthy World and is a social media influencer that has appeared on hundreds of podcasts, news stations, stage presentations, and online programs. Welcome, Dr. Anna Maria Temple.
I'm so excited to be here.
Oh yeah, where do we start? We have so much to talk about when it comes to kids because I have had children in my practice. And one of the things that I really wanted to deep dive with you on is, we might know exactly what to do in terms of nutrition. We give a plan to the parents, right? And, lots of vegetables, healthy fats, take out the sugar, take out the carbs, the grains, right? Take out the dairy even, and maybe some other foods that children tend to be sensitive to bring down inflammation in the body. But the hard part comes is actually implementing that plan, right? Because of
knowing and doing. Yeah, yes. Knowing and doing are two different things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I would love to hear from you, since you see thousands of kids and work with thousands of parents about what you do. What are some tips that you can give our population about how to get healthy food into children?
Got it. So it's my specialty. We work with this all the time, right? Because you can't, without nutrition, we're not going to get anywhere. First thing, you got to start with mindset. If you really truly believe that the way to heal your children is through mindset, you're going to make immense strides in your household. And having both parents and all people in the household on the same plan. Oftentimes I'll get people that come in and the mom is usually the driver. Dad doesn't really believe. Dad is still like, yeah, but I really like my fast food and my sodas and stuff. And mom is trying to fight the good fight. And of course it's a very difficult battle instead of a journey, because now the mom is doing one thing, dad is doing another thing. So mindset, believing that this is really where you need to be. And this is going to solve and help with a lot of your children's issues. Number two, getting both parents and really, I would even say siblings on board so we can decrease the discord. This is already hard enough. We don't need extra battles, as I said. Right. Then number three is starting slow, doing one thing at a time. Oftentimes when we get a plan, you're like, remove the dairy, the gluten, the blah, it's so overwhelming and we just want to do everything. And for some families that's doable. For a lot of families, it's not. Just go along the pace that you feel comfortable doing. When I started my healing journey, my kids had ADHD, anxiety, constipation, recurrent ear infections, asthma, allergies, everything that you can possibly think of. All my kids had it. And when we started, I started with the Cheez-Its. I was like, all right, we're going to take the Cheez-Its. And at that time, my kids were eating gluten and dairy and stuff, but we were eating garbage. We were eating processed food, food coloring, preservatives, fast food, all the stuff that I'm like, no, don't eat it. Right. We were eating it. And so I just started with the Cheez-Its. I was like, all right, for the Cheez-Its, I'm going to find an alternate cracker that has real ingredients without food coloring and without the preservatives in this box. Right. And I went to the store and that was my goal. And that can be daunting because there's like thousands of options of crackers. Oh my gosh, how do you choose? And that's why you partner up with somebody, like us that can guide you in, okay, try these brands. Don't worry about these other brands and then move from there. And then after I tackled the Cheez-Its, I went to the Ritz crackers. After the Ritz crackers, I went after breakfast. And my kids were eating Lucky Charms for breakfast and Pop-Tarts. Right. And on a good day, they were eating toaster strudels when they were getting a hot breakfast. I mean, I'm just saying. So I was like, okay, so now I have to get these people to eat fruits and vegetables And so I had to have a little think. I was like, okay, well, they're going to completely reject this. So instead of saying no in my family, I said, you know what? Hey, kids, who thinks that they can do a strawberry milkshake for breakfast? And of course, everyone's like, what? And I was like, and there's ice cream in it. They're like, what? And you're thinking like, what is she lady talking about? But my plan was, if I can get these kids to accept a smoothie at breakfast that tasted like strawberries, I can move up from there. And our first smoothie was ice cream, milk, and strawberries. And the kids drank it. They thought it was so delicious. It was amazing. And then they drank that. They didn't really have as much of their Lucky Charms, whatever. Well, over the next several weeks, I added a leaf of spinach. I added, a bit of mango. I took away the ice cream slowly and replaced it with whole fat yogurt. And then over time, I removed the whole fat yogurt, replaced it with dairy-free yogurt. I took the milk anyway, and then added chia seeds, and then hemp hearts, and then omegas. And, today, my kids get about 15 plant points in a smoothie in the morning, and we start out with one. But let me tell you something, starting out with one plant point is better than zero. Right. And it is a journey. Again, it didn't happen overnight. My kid's smoothie, and I have a very picky eater. Let me just back it up. My pickiest eater right now is 15 and a half years old. He refused to eat everything that was not processed. He is a sugar addict. He is a sugar monger. And so I had my, fight cut out for me. And if you would see a food, he would reject it immediately before even touching it. So start slow, try to get creative. I decided that smoothies were my creative power, and I made it my superpower. And now I make superpower smoothies. And next, tell kids that we're going to do a plant at every meal. On Instagram, my most popular challenge is the plant point challenge. And you have to get 13 plant points a day. You have a little calendar and everybody's got to write plant points. Here's the best part. You don't have to eat an entire bowl of strawberries to count as one plant point. You just have to eat one strawberry. And for my really picky eaters, one bite of a strawberry. For Evan, my picky eater, when we were doing the plant point challenge on vacation, because I think kids should also eat a lot of plants on vacation. This is not the time that we're just going to eat garbage. And he is like, he loves the camera. So we did this whole thing where I'm like, okay, Evan's going to eat plant points. So day one of vacation, he had like 3 plant points. Well, by day 5, because he was on Instagram and everybody was watching him eat, he's like chewing on parsley, chewing on dill. He just took a bite. And I was like, well, that's a plant point. So you make it small, make it doable, make it a challenge. Challenges are fun. Make sure everybody in the family is going to do the challenge together. And then at the end of the challenge, have a reward. But whenever we make small steps and fun steps, the kids are going to jump on it. So consider the plant point challenge as one of your items. Things that don't count: jelly. Yes, I know there's strawberries in jelly. That's a processed food. Oats and crackers, processed food, doesn't count. Our goal is that we're going to get whole food plants in our kids' bodies, even if we start with one bite at a time.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I love the way you talk about getting the whole family on board, because it's really hard for a child to see that a meal is being made just for them, or just for mom and them, because mom wants to be supportive. And we shouldn't be really saying, it could be dad and them too, so.
Right. I'm just going majority.
Not always mothers that are always the ones that are doing everything. But, I think it's important to make it a whole family endeavor and get everybody on board, both parents, because then you're not putting that child in the sick role. Like there's something wrong with you that you have to eat this way, and as opposed to putting the message out to the entire family that we are all going to get well. We're all going to feel good, because this is the way we should be eating food, and it's food in general that has created all of our issues, not just the issue in you. The child is just the canary in the coal mine, as far as I'm concerned. Right. Yeah.
Exactly what I say. Yeah. And in my eczema program, because we talk about the whole family, what we notice is that when the whole family actually adopts the plan, moms have lost weight. Dads have gotten off their cholesterol meds. Dads have stopped needing allergy medications. Acne was resolved. Migraines were gone away. So the parents were like, I didn't even know that there were like issues and that you should feel different until we ate differently as a whole family. And lo and behold, they were able to identify several issues that were going on with them, and those issues got better.
Right. That really, I think pediatricians are really at a good place in our system to be able to get the whole family on board and depathologize children's symptoms or illnesses or disorders, when you really put a family system in place. And that way the child doesn't feel like there's something wrong with them and they grow up like, oh, I had a problem or I'm bad, or, like, it's unfortunate that there's layers of other issues that occur when you isolate a child as being the problem, right?
Absolutely. And then the child feels like sometimes they feel less loved. And then it becomes becomes a whole issue that will transfer to food, transfer to the supplements, the whole plan. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. So I love your approach. That was excellent. So what do you do about tastes and textures? Do you have any tricks for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for my kids that have the different tastes, so I do like smoothies, but not everybody likes smoothies. So smoothies is one option.
That's usually my go-to is a smoothie. It's like,
right.
They don't like
and
the
if
texture.
they don't have it, like, but let me, tomato sauce. Tomato sauce is red. You can take a lot of vegetables that you roast, and whenever I make tomato sauce, it is always loaded with like 10 plan points, because I will have like mushrooms hanging out in the freezer. I'll have like zucchini, squash, all these things that you can actually roast ahead of time. Or let's say last night you roasted vegetables for the family. Your picky eater didn't eat any of them. Not a problem. Tonight you guys are making a bolognese sauce. You can take those roasted vegetables and your pasta sauce and you put it in a blender and pulverize it, and then make the rest of your bolognese sauce. So I always add roasted vegetables to my tomato sauce that nobody can see. Another one, if you do any curries, curries are so full of spices that, and I don't mean like spicy, like hot spices, but really flavorful aromatic spices, right, that, my gosh, you can put so many vegetables in a curry sauce, that, whenever I make my tikka masala, I'm like, I always hate to share that with any Indian families. I'm like, they're going to be like, what are you doing to our curries? Because I will jam it with so many vegetables. If I make burgers, meatloaf, I always have vegetables in there. When my Evan was like, I really love these burgers tonight, Mom. I was like, why? He's like, because there's no green things in them. There's always something green hanging out in one of the burgers. And then if your child is super picky, another thing, you can actually use ketchup. So if they have ketchup, you can actually roast vegetables and put it in the ketchup. You're not going to put a whole cup of roasted vegetables in a tiny bottle of ketchup. Start out small, 1 tablespoon, because taste buds die every 30 days. So a third of our taste buds die every 30 days. In 90 days, you have all new taste buds. So if you just slowly, and you have perseverance and you're just dedicated, you're going to be able to change the taste buds. I'll tell you, we started our journey in 2007, and Evan was so super picky. And last week we were out of town at a conference, and my mother-in-law was watching him, and she calls me up and is like, just want to let you know, Evan has eaten all these foods. I cannot believe what variety of foods he eats these days. I'm like, yeah, took 15 years to get there. But this mama is a persevering mama warrior. And my mission was, he will have a diversified palate, and I will do what it takes. And I just every day come up with a new idea on what to do.
Right. That's great ideas. And I tell my parents that it does only have to be a little bit of a piece to sort of even cultivate or get the microbiome, because it's the microbiome that's eating the vegetables, right? And to diversify the microbiome is even just introducing very small amounts, and that's all you need, because then your palate will absolutely want that food. You'll start craving these vegetables, and you don't really have to have a whole lot, just a teeny tiny bit. So I love your idea of just pulverizing it in a blender and just adding it to sauces or ketchup. Those are excellent ideas. Yeah, so it can be really tough with the textures and the tastes, and really hard. It's so frustrating for so many of my parents that are wanting to get these vegetables in their kids, because they do many parents really believe in that food is medicine, and that's the way they want to go. And so these tips are really fantastic. Why don't we shift gears and talk a little bit about screen time? because I know you have very strong opinions and good opinions about screen time, and and some really great ideas. I would love for you to share them with us.
Awesome. Well, actually, it's a great transition because when we talk about picky eaters, one of the tools a lot of parents use with picky eaters is using screen time at meal times.
Mm.
And, there's this misconception that the more that the kids will watch the screen and therefore they'll eat better. That's actually false. And that's just a belief that we parents have put into our heads. I can't tell you how many parents we have in our program that we're like, okay, so we're going to start weaning off. And what we realize is the parent is addicted to the screen time as much as the child. And what do I mean by that? Well, when the kids are eating with the screens, you don't have to converse with them. You don't have to talk to them. They seem entranced. So you can have a conversation with your spouse, or you are on your own screen, which then has its own issues. So one of the things is like, let's remove screens from meal times. And again, you're not going to do it if your child is used to having every time they drink a bottle. This is actually true from like people that I've treated in my practice. Every time they drink a bottle, that they eat a meal, they have a snack, they have a screen. You're not going to be like cold turkey one day. That can be really daunting. Just start with one thing. All right, from this day forward at breakfast, we'll no longer have screens. Why? The batteries ran out. People are like, I don't want to lie to my children. I'm like, really? Can I just say Santa Claus? Okay. All right. So we are going to just tell them that there's no batteries, or the iPad is broken, or something horrible has happened to the iPad. You can absolutely say, you know what? I'm a very strong-willed person, and I don't think children should run the household. And I also, when I tell them that that's what we're going to do, that's what we're going to do. So I usually am pretty straightforward. We're just no longer going to do that because this is the new rule in the house.
Right.
That's it. And then when they're little, talking to them about what's happening to their brain, do they care? No. If your child cares, please elaborate as much as you want to. But sometimes you're just like, we're taking the screen away. Done. Right. Another thing is, what we haven't realized is the effect on screens. What's happened is, if we look at the pandemic, we put children in front of Zoom school for 8 hours a day. We have no medical evidence of what that does to a developing brain. None. So we have no idea of that time on developing brain. We do have evidence that kids who watch a lot of screens in early childhood actually are at much higher risk for anxiety and ADHD than children who do not do that. There's an amazing study done by a pediatrician with a mouse model. And what he did, he made a simulation of the mouse playing video games and shows what the mouse does in a maze. So in a maze, when the mouse comes in, a mouse always goes around the block on the side of the maze, because they're always afraid that something's going to eat the mouse. The mouse is like lowest thing on the totem pole. So they know that there's cheese, but they walk all around the perimeter, very calculated before they get to the cheese. After the mouse has been in an environment that simulates screens and video games, and actually cartoons, today's cartoons are intense. Right. And if they've been for a significant amount of time, several hours on these cartoons, they put the mouse back in the maze, and the mouse's behavior is all over the place. He's bouncing all over the place. He has no fear of what's going on. And his path is so incredibly erratic, pretty much like the mind of a child who now has developed ADHD, anxiety, or depression. Right. When we look at screens, children under the age of 2 should have 0 screen time. Right. I know there's a lot of stuff out there. They're like, oh my gosh, but if they watch Baby Einstein or this other thing, they're going to be reading chapters by 18 months. There's no reason a child should be reading chapter books by 18 months. That's just not developmentally normal. It's not. And what is being, right?
Right. I know. What they need is to have skin time and bonding time, right? They need skin time and bonding time, and make eye contact with their parents and other caregivers. That's what they really need. And, we were talking about this a little bit before, we started, is that many children are now being found to have attachment disorders because the parent is distracted with their own screen time, and they're not interacting with their children and, really cultivating that attachment, that back and forth, that dance that you have to have, that, when children are growing up, they need to be connected to you. And so what happens is now, as they get older, they have issues attaching, or disruption of attachment to other people as they get older. So it's really, really scary, when you see this happening, because just that alone is enough to cause serious psychiatric issues as they become teenagers and adults.
Absolutely. I mean, the children learn at home how to have manners, how to do eye contact, how to negotiate, how to navigate the world. And if at home they're on screens all the time, they're not learning that key interaction with the world. And to your point, when we're not making the proper bonds with our caregivers, that actually does carry out into long term. And then I have parents that come in, they're like, you need to fix this one. There's something wrong with this one. I'm like, no, there's a bond broken, and the parent is so addicted to their device. They're so preoccupied with what they're doing that they can't properly give the quality time needed. Here's the thing, guys. The number one love language of all children is quality time with their parents. Yeah. It's not gifts. I know you're like, yeah, but they get really happy when I buy them stuff. That's fleeting. It's temporary. They want quality time. In the 1980s is when we started seeing a huge shift from quality time to monetary and gift giving. So parents start, because their life became so busy around the 80s, they replaced quality time with gifts. And now we have children who just like want more and more, because you're trying to quench your thirst for love from your parents or from your spouse or from whatever with stuff. So us Americans, especially, we just hoard stuff in order to fill our hearts with love. And the stuff does not equal love. Right. And so that's really difficult to have that as an issue.
I agree. I completely agree. Yeah, we could talk about that forever. There's so many problems with that, the connections with people. And I love what you said about not having screens at the table, at the dinner. Well, I'm assuming at the dinner table, but you mentioned breakfast, and there's research that shows that when families sit together for dinner every night, that there's significantly reduced rates of addiction and other pathologies just because of one change, having dinner as a family every single night. So that's something that we did as a family, and there was that was a rule we had in our family too. No screens at the table. No screens at the table for anybody, not just the kids.
Anybody.
The whole family, no screens at the table.
I think that is so important. In fact, actually, is the first chapter in my book. It talks about family time, the meal time. Mm-hmm. We are so busy these days. I call it, this is the only time that we have our family meeting, because everyone is running in every direction. You never get to see them. And then when you make that connection at dinner, from toddlers to teenagers, it is the most important time of the day. And I completely agree, no screens. And so the challenge for anyone listening is when we go out in public, leave your child's iPad at home. First of all, the fact that children have their own iPads, mind blowing, but whatever. Right. But here's the thing, leave the iPads, leave any devices at home. When you go to a restaurant, there should be no plan B. When you go to a doctor's office, no plan B. When you're at the grocery store, no plan B, because that's how children learn how to be bored, how to come up and be entertained. You have to converse and interact with the kids. Is it annoying to talk to your kid who wants everything at Costco? It is, but that's how you actually learn the art of communication, negotiation, and talking to them. They have to learn patience. They have to learn their turn. These are all important skills that an iPad is not going to teach them. And, I feel so strongly about it. I get so upset. We were just at a brewery with my husband the other night, and there was a table of kids, and all of them had their iPads watching movies. I'm like, my mind literally, I was like, wait, we're outside in a beautiful area. Yes, they don't like the music, but how do you learn music appreciation if you're not actually exposed to it? Instead, you have your headphones on and listening to a video game in the middle of an outdoor experience. And I've seen this at kids shows. I mean, the children are in the children's theater with iPads in front of them. I'm like, what are we doing? So we are depriving our children of experiences and the human interaction, because these devices are so easy. I'm not arguing. So easy, so addicted. I try to check email, and then an hour later, I'm on Instagram doing DMs. I'm like, what? It's so easy. And these things are made in a specific ways to get our brains more and more addicted. So it's not your fault. It's not my fault. This is how these devices are made. We just have to be cognizant and be aware that we got to do it differently.
Right. So any other tips besides leaving the screen time, the screen pads at home on
Oh,
screen time.
yeah,
What
I
about,
do. I do. It's one of the things that it was very popular when I go out with my kids. My whole life is on Instagram. And one of the things I have my kids are adults, and we were at a restaurant and I brought card game, and we had like exploding kittens, and we had like pizza, taco, goat, some other silly game. And everybody's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, sometimes, I mean, we can have cerebral conversation. My kids are adults, but sometimes it's boring, right? And you're just like, let's play a game, and then we make it fun. It's like my adult kids become little kids again. But if you have little kids, there's so many games that you can play, and going around the table, getting creative on, okay, we got to sit in line, we got to wait for our table for 45 minutes. What else can we do? Right?
We do the same thing. We do the same thing. We have a deck of cards on us all the time, and we played cards at the table at every restaurant, even if it was a fine dining restaurant when the kids were little, and we had a great time. And now even as my kids being adults, any trip that we have as a family trip, we pull out the cards, because it's just a fun thing that we do, and it's a pastime. It's a way we bond, and it's so much fun, and it's just a way to connect with each other, and you're doing something that's real physical, as opposed to and interacting with each other, right?
But I'm so glad you brought that up, because here's the other thing. We go like, oh, they're 4, they're 5, they're annoying, they're difficult, right? Because I mean, my kids, I'm speaking for my kids, they were annoying, and I love them dearly, but that doesn't mean they're not. Anyway, but when you're creating a different culture, that the expectation at the restaurant, we're going to come up with games. At the restaurant, when they grow, when they're older, now they're adults, they want to hang out with you. Right. Because they have a warmth, they have that connection back to that initial bond. So my kids want to come home. They want to be silly with us at the table. They want to play the ridiculous games, and of course make fun of me, because that's everyone's favorite pastime. And that's okay. But instead of, now they're recluse, they're isolated, they sit at the phone, they'd rather be on TikTok, on watching videos, because there's no connection with their parents. Why would I come home? So the habits we instill in them when they're young are actually the habits that will carry with them into adulthood. So a lot of times, like, they're young, they're fine. No, actually, everything you do right now is the question you should have in mind. Is this the habit I want them to have for the next 25 years? So, because sometimes simple things end up becoming really big things later on.
Absolutely. And the other thing that happens when you have a lot of time with them and being silly with them and just talking about stuff other than, did you get your homework done? Did you do this? Did you do that? And giving, firing questions. What did you do today? Is that they just get to know you as a person. And then you develop a trust, where then when things happen that are scary or embarrassing or really tough to handle, they'll come to you, because you've developed this foundation of trust through those experiences from young childhood. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
And then, for mental health, I mean, once they are developing that trust, they'll tell you about bullying. They can tell you that they're feeling sad, that they're having suicidal ideation, or they might not tell you about suicidal ideation, but now you're so comfortable with your kids that you're comfortable asking about that. You can ask them about substance abuse, about sex, about drugs, about alcohol, all the different things, which a lot of times when we feel disconnected to our children, we don't want to bring it up. But if you're always talking and being goofy and it's a warm environment, those topics are not that taboo. Right. You can bust out a question anytime. You can be sitting at the dinner table and be like, is anyone watching porn? This is literally a question at my dinner table. And when my husband brings that up, I've choked on my meal and everybody like falls apart laughing. But then we have a real conversation. And we're really talking about, where's your mindset? What are you doing? What are you watching? Who's watching? When you're watching, and instead of making things taboo, and no, do you want to talk about porn? No, I don't want to talk about that with my children, but it's so important. And when you have open conversations and they know that screens are not allowed, and we have that combo, and I'm going to be looking you in the eye, they're not surprised by a conversation that's going to take a turn in a little bit of an uncomfortable world. They know how to be uncomfortable, and they know how to have those tough conversations, which prevents anxiety and depression later on.
Right. And with other people, because they've practiced it with you. Yes, that's totally. So perfect. So perfect. Everything you're saying is just right on. I love everything you're saying. So I like I said, I could talk to you forever. So I'm going to switch gears. how do you get your kids to sleep? How do you get them to bed and sleeping?
Perfect segue, because my last tip on electronics is going to be no screens in the bedroom. One of the biggest killers of sleep are these devices. You know, one of the things that happened when we didn't have electricity, there were no sleep problems. No one had sleep difficulties. Then they invented the light bulb, which we love the light bulb. But once the light bulb was invented, sleep issues started becoming a problem. Once the iPhone became a thing, or the BlackBerry, whichever, have your pick, sleep issues became a humongous issues. And now we're at the worst rates of insomnia ever. When we don't sleep, you guys already know, that actually translates to anxiety, behavioral issues, mood issues, depression, ADHD, not to mention immune system dysfunction, which sets us up for being vulnerable to viral illnesses like the flu, COVID, adenovirus, and the rest. But so screens are the biggest killer. When kids watch screens in the middle, excuse me, one second, pardon me. When kids watch screens before bed, it actually lowers their melatonin level. When the sun is out, our melatonin levels are down. When the sun sets, melatonin goes up. Screens, doesn't matter if you're watching the Muppets or you watch Muppets, like how old am I? If you watch it, anyway, you're watching whatever cartoon that sounds really trendy right now is on, and it's not a violent show, it's actually the blue light that is the same as the blue light from the sun that goes into your kid's eyes, and it tells the brain, sunshine, the sun is out. So the body naturally lowers melatonin. Where melatonin is down, kids have trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, and then they wake up super early in the morning. So watch the screens. There should be no screens in children's bedrooms ever. Teenagers, never. Repeat after me. Never. There should be no phones in yours, dear adults, in your bedrooms. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, it's my alarm. Fun fact, Target and Amazon still sell alarm clocks for $10 that you can put in your room. All phones should be in a central charging device in the kitchen. We have a massive thing in a drawer. And in the morning, when I wake up, if there are phones that are missing, those phones get confiscated for the next 24 hours. And that's happened to my kids who go to high school. And one of my sons was like, I have everything on my phone. I can't give my presentation. I was like, look at me, don't care. You violated the rules, and you should have your work saved on multiple devices, not just a phone. But thanks for trying though. See you later. And let me tell you, it didn't happen after that, but you have to follow through with consequences.
Exactly.
So no phones. And
Never
also
make threats without consequences. Always follow through. That is like the one pet peeve that I have with people. It's like they say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Well, there's no follow through. So they know you're not going to follow through. So they're not going to do it ever. You got to follow through.
Absolutely. And you know what? As a parent, it hurts. But I'm like, if you're sitting there and it hurts and you're so depressed that the child didn't listen and you had to do the consequence, you're doing an awesome job as a parent. You should not feel, oh my God, I'm so amazing all the time. Everyone's happy in my household. Our job is to make some hard choices and decisions. Parenting is hard. Learning is hard, and it's okay. And another thing I wanted to say too is Wi-Fi. So a lot of people have Alexa and various Wi-Fi devices. Your Wi-Fi monitors and Wi-Fi sound machines, all Wi-Fi devices should also be out of your room. Sorry, because the Wi-Fi at night wakes up the brain. The brain's awake, is not going into deep sleep. Right. So just sometimes I have kids that are sleeping above, like right next to where the routers are, or the bedroom is right above an area where the routing system is. Right. Careful. I'm not saying everybody, just something to keep in mind for nighttime sleep issues.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually had a patient who was in an apartment complex, and they had this whole bank for the whole apartment complex of I don't know what they call them, smart thingies, I don't know, but a whole bank of them for the whole apartment complex. And her apartment was next to that, and she could not sleep and got very, very depressed. And somehow or another, she just learned about Wi-Fi and EMFs, and she asked to have the apartment changed to a different part of the complex, and her depression and sleep got significantly better. Yeah, I mean, it really can affect certain people pretty badly. And so it's important to consider that possibility.
Yeah. Right. And just because it's not affecting you doesn't mean it doesn't affect your child. Because a lot of people, like we all see the world with our perspective, right? If I'm hungry, they should be hungry. If, if I'm thirsty, they should be thirsty. The world is not you. And you may not have any issues with Wi-Fi, but your child does. Remember that children are not small adults. They're actually different humans with a different metabolism. Their brain is developing so incredibly fast. They absorb nutrition, Wi-Fi, pollutants so quickly because their body is operating very differently than an adult body.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the good thing about kids is that, because they haven't grown up, a lot of changes that you can make nutritionally and by lifestyle changes, they respond so much more quickly than adults do as well. So you can get them well pretty quickly if you can do these different strategies that you've talked about, and especially the tips that I love about getting food in to these little bodies so that they can get well and heal. So any other tips that you have before we close? Anything else that you think everybody's got to know right now?
Right. So one of the things with screen time, because I know that people are going to be upset, if you want to do screen time in the evening, do it before dinner. Changing the screen time before dinner reduces nightmares, reduces night terrors, and reduces their issues with falling asleep and staying in their bed. If your child has a sleep issue, also talk to your doctor about iron, because low iron levels actually cause sleep issues like restless leg syndrome, nightmares, sleepwalking, so many other things. So if you're a child, you've done all these other things that we talked about, have your child's iron levels be checked, because that could actually make a difference. And a lot of parents give their children melatonin when the child actually needs more iron.
Right.
And then in the end, really just realize that all the things we're talking about are not easy. And the reason that most people don't do them and laugh at people who do them is because they're not easy, and nobody wants to do the hard stuff. But the hard stuff is what has kept my families in my practice and in my courses without going to the ER for COVID, urgent care issues, no cardiology, no multi-system inflammatory condition. We navigate flu season without antibiotics or medications or steroids and stuff like that. The stuff that we're doing right now not only is going to help you have a strong immune system, but it will also prevent side effects that are going to lead to things that are going to manifest, like such as anxiety, depression, and other mental health illnesses. And the rates these days, guys, are astronomical. The rates of teen suicide in females is up 50%. Overall anxiety in children is up by 50% over the past 2 years. And everything we talked about today is actually 3 of the root causes one of the reasons, they're the reasons that we're seeing such a significant increase.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do want to add that low iron is also a reason why some children have ADD too.
Absolutely. Iron is super important for the brain.
Yeah.
And depression and fatigue. If you
Right.
have debilitating fatigue, without iron, you can't function.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Anna Maria, I'm so happy to have you today talking about all these issues and solutions. I love everything that you said, and I'm so grateful. So I know people are going to love this episode, and hopefully we'll get some kids happy and healthier, and as well as their families too, not just the child alone. So I really thank you for coming on to my show and giving these fantastic tips for us. I'm sure everyone's going to love them. And I want to make sure that people know how to find you. Your website is drannamaria.com, and your Instagram is at Dr. Anna Maria Temple. I love all of the videos that you do with your son. And you're also on Facebook /Family Wellness Tips. And I know you are offering a free chapter of your breakfast ebook, and I'll give the link in the show notes as well as email. So I know that everybody goes to her Instagram. She's got fantastic tips for you on a daily basis, and they're fun to watch. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. Take care.
Thanks, you too.